As someone who likes cameras a lot, I've spent kind of a lot of time sort of looking down on webcams in some ways. I've always seen value in the very inexpensive, like you just need a camera kind of webcam. But for years, I've advised people against getting the like $400 or $500 webcams that promise to have the exact same image quality as a mirrorless camera or a DSLR back in the day, because no matter what a company's marketing said, that just is not a thing that is possible. Over time, things sort of did develop, and companies could look at things and be like, well, if a mirrorless camera can give you, blurry backgrounds, we can just have software blur the background. But that still isn't the same image quality. It still doesn't look super natural. It still doesn't have the same low light performance. It's still not the same thing. And this world where webcams were trying to be as good as like real cameras, webcams are just kind of set up to lose every time. But recently, I've been using some more what I call high-end webcams, so things like the OBSBot Tail 2, the YoloCam over here, which these are bigger, but even just nicer, more modern, regular small webcams, like this is the OBSBot Tiny 2, or the good old Instalink 360. Like, those aren't really high-end webcams, they're nice webcams. These are sort of their own thing, and that, it's not just that these are good cameras, but I feel like what has happened is there's sort of been this split where webcams, and I honestly don't even know if that's the proper term for cameras like these anymore. I really feel like they're not trying to be mirrorless cameras anymore. They're not trying to be real cameras. They're their own thing that serves their own purpose. And now I think that there's a genuine place for it. And the thing I've been working on that kind of spawned this is I've been working on a review for the Tail 2, which I really like this camera so much. And I'm also then been working on a review for the YoloCam. But these cameras are expensive. So even the webcams over here, the Tiny 2 is a $300 just small webcam. There is a light version of this. It's about $160. And it's a nice little PTZ 4K webcam. I've done a whole video about that. The Tail 2 is $1,200. And the YoloCam is $800. So as somebody who has historically told people, like, the reason I said don't spend $500 on a webcam is because, if you spend a couple $100s on a small camera like this, you're probably going to get what you expect. If you spend a whole bunch of money on a mirrorless camera, $1,000 or more, you're probably going to get what you expect. When you spend $500 on a webcam that says that it's going to be a real camera quality, you're just going to kind of end up disappointed and probably end up dealing with a lot of frustration. And it just ends up being kind of an overall negative experience where you end up feeling like you probably wasted your money. So as I've been using these cameras and as I've been, thinking about them, the first thing that pops up every time is price. Because, for the price of the YoloCam, you can get a ZV-E10, a Sony ZV-E10 mirrorless camera body. I think you could also get the Canon, the R50V, like their new small mirrorless camera. Body only, you get that for the same price as this. For the $1,200 of the OBSBot Tail 2, you could get like a ZV-E10 Mark II with a kit lens. You could get, like, you're also then not that far off from something even like an FX30, like, really nice real cameras. But what I think is really cool, the reason I want to make this video is because I think that there is, especially before I start making reviews on these cameras, I think that there is a place for them because there has been a shift. I don't think these are trying to be mirrorless cameras anymore. This is sort of interesting and different, but I think there's a really specific purpose for these, and it's different than the purpose for this, and that is super cool because it just gives more options to more people. So the benefits to a mirrorless camera like this is my Sony a7 IV. Right off the bat is just image quality. This is a full frame camera, so if I turn it on, I don't want to get dust in here, but you can see this shiny part in here, the size of the sensor. The camera's sensor is bigger than the entire camera of the Tiny 2 over here. So realistically, could this camera, no. It's like you have your little like tiny telescope and then you go up to like an observatory and it's like, yeah, you could both look at the stars, but there's just no way that your tiny telescope from the hobby shop is going to compare to the observatory's telescope, right? And that's, but it's not supposed to. And as long as you know that, then it's okay. This is not supposed to be a mirrorless camera. So I think that that's okay. And also for the price, I don't think anyone's really expecting it to do that. The benefit to these are that you get really clear 4K image quality. It doesn't have like the blurry backgrounds or the crazy low light performance, but it's clear, it's crisp, and you got all the tracking stuff. So you have PTZ tracking, which is just so awesome when you're especially someone who, kind of does everything by yourself, or you just need to move around a little bit. You do online teaching and stuff. That PTZ tracking can be super helpful. Just even in live streams for me, it's awesome. So huge benefits there. I would call these relatively affordable and accessible here and accessible there. Mirrorless cameras, again, you have the benefit of them being a camera. So you have that good image quality, good video quality. They can do photos. You can also take them out and, use them as cameras and things. And you can change lenses. I don't have a lens on this camera right now, but I could put any number of lenses on this to totally change what this camera is capable of doing. These cameras, except for this one, all have built-in lenses. So what you get is what you get. You don't get upset. Isn't that the thing? You get what you get, you don't get upset. But that's kind of just how they work. They're fixed lens cameras. Getting into the high-end things, these are the two that I have right now. There are other ones out there, but the Tail 2 is one. Let me tell you, this camera came out, people were so excited about it. I was kind of like, it's a very expensive. It just looks like a giant version of this camera, and it's very expensive. Having been able to use it, it's a really, really incredible camera, and it has been incredibly helpful for me in my workflow, which is kind of why then I was starting to see the value of these things more. So by itself, this camera, I've noticed it's not plugged in, but it's powered on. So it's got a big old battery inside. You have all kinds of connections. You have a micro SD slot. It can record in 4K. You have optical zoom and then PTZ and tracking functionality. So I can literally just set this here, hit record. Now it's recording and it's tracking me. So now I have the Tail 2 right here that's tracking me. I can even, adjust it more with this remote. I can zoom in if I need to, which is usually makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable. Not that you would vlog with this camera, but here's me vlogging with the Tail 2. But also some other cool things. I can tilt the camera because it's auto leveling, and even though it's crooked right now, the shot is still stable. That's, something we're pretty used to with action cameras, maybe even phones having good stabilization, but not cameras like this. And then an optical zoom where the lens actually physically moves and it doesn't just, try to do CSI cheap things where it's like enhancing a digital thing and it ends up looking terrible. But that zoom can also kind of, do some fun stuff just like you could with camcorders back in the day. What I've been using this camera a lot for is stuff like this, where when I'm doing videos on things and I need my close-up camera, which normally I would set up a mirrorless camera with a nice lens on it, and then I would have that as like, where I can sort of demo things like this. Now I can do this camera here, but then I can also set it to track the thing that I'm using, which, sometimes can look natural, sometimes can look unnatural. You have to learn how to use the tools that you're using. But that way I don't have to worry about it always being in the frame or always being in focus or not. I know that if I'm talking about something and using it, it's almost gonna look like someone else is operating the camera over here for me. And then on top of that, something else that I've been able to do is, especially when I'm trying to just sort of streamline my workflow or my live streams. So in live streams, sometimes I need to move. Having cameras that can just track me and follow me is really cool. But also just being able to use presets. So like right now, if I set this as preset 1, and I can zoom out to a shot like this and make it preset number 2, now I can just have the camera on its own switch. So say I wanted to use this shot and then switch over here to this shot. Now I can just switch my preset, and when I come back to this camera, it's on the close-up shot over here. Or I guess I don't have to switch away. I could even do that live, where then it's just back on me over here. This has been super helpful. I did that recently in a video where I was trying to show something on the Rodecaster Pro 2 and the Rodecaster Duo, and I needed an overhead camera to show their screens. I was able to use the Tail 2, just not even overhead, but just kind of up high on a light stand. And then I had it preset to one camera screen, preset to the other camera screen. The auto exposure made it so you could see the screen and everything on it. The focus kept it super clear. And when I was switching between devices, where normally I would have to either get up and move the camera and change the tripod and change the focus and the zoom and everything, I just literally push one button and it would just kind of go back and forth between the devices. And that not only made the video better, made the concept clearer, but also made my life so much easier. And that's just me doing stuff in here. If you extrapolate that kind of workflow, not just with this camera, but other cameras similar to it, if you extrapolate that to, live events, graduation, churches, sports games, all that kind of stuff, it really becomes very powerful in a way that you actually don't have those features with the regular mirrorless camera. You have other advantages here, but you also have disadvantages. You have other advantages here, but certain disadvantages. And that's what I think is really cool, is that these cameras are now their own thing, where it's not a direct competition, but it's just choose the right tool for the job. Like, you have a toolbox, you have a hammer, you have a screwdriver. Like, what are you doing? Which tool do you need for that job? It's not that one is always better than the other. You just have more options. And then there's stuff like the YoloCam, which I find very, very interesting, because this does kind of bridge the gap in an interesting way. So there's no PTZ functionality in here. I'm just gonna try to unscrew it from here. In a way, it almost kind of looks like a Sony FX30, Sony FX3, something like that. Except, if you kind of notice, it's just sort of a slab of metal. There's nothing. There's no screen. There's no buttons. There's no memory card slot. There's nothing on this. This is basically an $800 webcam that you can connect either through USB-C or through HDMI or both. It does have a microphone input and USB power, and that's it. Because there's no battery, so you need USB power. And that's kind of it. But what you also have, though, is you do have an interchangeable lens. So this is interesting because this is actually a micro four thirds sensor, which, while much smaller than a full frame sensor, way bigger still than many webcams. Again, like the tiny micro four thirds sensor compared to just the entire camera of this little webcam, still a massive sensor. And you have all kinds of now interchangeable lenses that you can attach. So what they've done here is they have made an interchangeable lens webcam. It is $800 for the camera, and then you have to figure out your lens situation. It does also have very interesting and very good autofocus, but basically you have to control everything with this camera through your computer, or you just plug it into a source to a switcher like the YOLO box or the Rodecaster or whatever. You have no screen, nothing here. This is a camera that's never meant to be taken out and like to events and take photos and videos. This is just a video webcam. Why would you spend, by the time, it's literally the same price as the Sony ZV-E10, and especially once you get a lens, why would you buy this when you could just get a small mirrorless camera that can do video but also is a camera and has buttons and controls? And the answer is, not everyone is like me, or maybe like you, where I love cameras and controls and buttons and dials and knobs and all the things. I don't mind learning how to use that stuff. I've spent many years learning how to use those things. I appreciate those things. That's not everybody, though. Last summer, we redid my wife's studio setup. She'd been using my Canon 6D, my old one, for a long time, which is a 1080 camera. She had to use manual focus on it. It looked great, but she was kind of ready to explore the world of 4K. She still wanted things to look really good, and was ready to kind of dive into autofocus so she could be, at her table, and if she leans back or forward, she's not going in and out of focus. It was manual focus. You had to be in like this very specific plane. We ended up settling on the Sony ZV-E1 for her, so full frame camera, 4K, looks awesome. Like, it is a fantastic camera. Had to figure out little bits to get around overheating, which fortunately hasn't been an issue. But that camera, since we set that up a year ago at this point, has not left the tripod, has not even had a battery in it. It has a dummy battery, has not used the memory card. Like, she uses it basically what you would use this for. So if this had existed, it could have actually been a really good choice for that setup, because she's someone who she wants the camera there, wants the image quality that this can give you. So you have a nice sensor, you have interchangeable lenses, so you can get, you put a prime lens on here, you can get sharp focus and shallow depth of field, but nothing else. There's no need to have to deal with anything. Plus, cameras like this, or this camera, I don't know if there are other cameras really like this, maybe some of the Blackmagic ones, no overheating ever. It's a studio camera, essentially. But in this case, rather than going the Blackmagic route and being like a high-end studio camera, it's sort of working more like a webcam that people are used to. So if you can work one of these little cameras You can also work this camera, but now you're also getting the mirrorless camera image quality because it is a mirrorless camera webcam. So it is one of the few, if not only, webcams that can actually claim to be the same quality as a mirrorless camera because it is a mirrorless camera. So why would someone want to spend the same price as a mirrorless camera? Because they don't want a mirrorless camera. They don't want to deal with all the buttons, all the settings. They're never going to take it off of their tripod. They're never going to take it out anywhere. They're probably going to run into a capture card, never even use the memory card. They're never going to use battery. They just want to set it and forget it, but still get really good image quality. And now something like this lets them do that. And basically, they never have to think about the camera again. And that is pretty cool. I know for me, someone who's a camera nerd, the more buttons I see, the better. I love cameras with buttons and things. But not everybody's like that. And so more options, more tools for more people, I think that's really exciting. And that's why over the past, I don't know if it's the past year, but this year especially, I've really sort of come around on these sort of different cameras that I never would have looked at before because I kind of thought, you know, why not just get a mirrorless camera? Like either get a cheap webcam or use your phone and then save up and get a mirrorless camera. But because these have become their own thing in such a big way now, I really do think that they are the right answer for a lot of people in a lot of situations. And I kind of just wanted to share that because as I'm working on, whenever you work on a YouTube video, you kind of anticipate the things people are going to say. Like the comments, good and bad, all that kind of stuff, the questions people are going to have, the things that they're confused about. And I know I can talk about the Tail 2 all day and all the cool things it does and why I think it's a really cool camera. But the $1,200 price point is a very expensive camera. And I know that that's going to be part of the conversation, understandably so. Everybody's budgets are different. So some people have no problem spending $1,200 on a camera. Some people would never think of it. So that just varies from person to person. But as I've been knowing that that is going to be part of the conversation that inevitably comes with making these cameras, and it makes sense, I totally get that, I thought it would be nice to just sort of share some thoughts and feelings and opinions about why I think that these cameras are neat, that they do have a place, and it is a more unique place than we've been used to, where historically, you know, webcams and things like that were just trying to pretend that they were as good as mirrorless cameras. I think it's better for everybody that they're not doing that anymore and that they are their own tools, their own devices that don't try to outperform these. They just try to do something entirely different.